It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back. I was actually looking at Dan Wass's radio schedule today. I believe we're his first interview, but he's got a jam-packed schedule. Dan, welcome back to the program, sir.
Hey, Paul. It's always great to be on your show. How are you?
I'm doing good. So you've got a jam-packed schedule today. You're kind of making the rounds on radio across the country.
Yeah. We just added Colorado here right after I get off with you.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going really well. People want to hear what I have to say. You know, who would have ever thought? You know.
Hey.
But I think what's happening is that people are starting to understand that there's more of a mindset in this country that we need to address, rather than gun laws necessarily and all the statistics and facts and all the analytics. There's more of this anti-gun messaging that's out there. It's corrupted the minds of a lot of people, and gun owners can see it, but they can't necessarily put their finger on it. And what I'm trying to do now on a national level is try to uncover a lot of that stuff and help people understand what's going on with the thought process of those who want to violate your rights and take away guns.
Again, we're talking with Dan Wass. He's the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy, Behind the Lies of the Anti-Gun Radical. And we've talked about this book before. Dan, so let's talk about that mentality. What are we, is it a failure of the other side to understand that, you know, the Second Amendment is more than about guns? It's about, you know, your natural right to defend yourself, of self-preservation?
Well, yes, but it's not only that. It's not only a failure of people, the average people that we live among, you know, the average people we see in the grocery store, in the bank, and the post office. It's a matter of them being convinced of something that's not true. Here, I'll give you an example. Let's say we have an anti-gunner he's in the mall, and a terrorist comes in, starts shooting the place up, tells everyone get on the ground and stay there while he's doing his dirty work. So now, while the anti-gunner is on the ground, sees a guy with, let's say, a Make America Great Again hat on and a pair of dirty cowboy boots, jump behind a corner, pull a gun out of his belt. Guess who just became that anti-gunner's new best friend?
Mm-hmm.
And now here's the thing. Here's where the mind manipulation gets a little twisted. So you ask that anti-gunner, you say, well, which position would you rather be in? Face first on the ground begging for your life, or having a gun to potentially be able to save your own life? And at that point, they usually see the logic in being able to, you know, defend themselves and their family. But then you ask them, do you think malls should be gun-free zones? And what do you think they say?
Absolutely. That's what they say.
They don't exactly. They don't know how to think about this topic because they've been confused with a whole menu of anti-gun rhetoric and propaganda. They understand the logic and basic necessity of protecting yourself, but their thought process on the topic of guns has been very twisted and manipulated.
Wow. So it's kind of so how has it been manipulated? What's the process there? I mean, is it just in the culture, the pop? I mean, you've got all these celebrities who make movies where they're using guns, and then they're some of the most vocal anti-gunners out there.
Well, the first thing that you can go back to, the easiest way to look at it is listen to the rhetoric, listen to the propaganda and the talking points. We have terms like gun violence. Now, that term is pushed heavy in our media, and it's even pushed now. It's even talked about by conservatives, people on the right, because it's become part of our talking, our talking points, you could call it. Are the way we think about guns. So gun violence, and I always say this, and people look at me cross-eyed at first. I say there's no such thing as gun violence. And they go, what? What do you mean there's no such? Well, there's no such thing. Gun violence does not exist. Human violence does exist, and that's where we should be focused, but we're not, because if we were to focus on human violence, we'd have to look at any number of things. I mean, we could talk about pharmaceutical drugs,
Yes.
and the use of them in our country. We could talk about open borders, sanctuary cities. We could talk about gang violence, welfare dependency. There's so many issues in our country that actually cause people to be violent. And the problem with that is that when you tell the Democrats to look at that stuff, they look the other way because they don't want to shine that spotlight on those policies that they often support.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they redirect the focus and want you to think that the real problem is guns. So they use terms like gun violence to associate guns and violence together.
So let's back up, and you mentioned pharmaceuticals. Let's talk about this. Are you talking about the antipsychotics that are often, found that mass shooters are taking some of these drugs?
Well, exactly, and it's not my area of expertise, but I do see an issue there. I mean, when these people are, most often after they've come off of these drugs, they tend to do act out in bad destructive ways. Now, I don't know what's going on there, but I do know that if doctors were to focus on this issue, here's a question, Paul. It's a real simple question. Why the hell are we drugging everybody? Mm-hmm. When did this start, and what purpose does it serve? Are we trying to eliminate feelings or things that we should maybe be dealing with ourselves? Maybe some of the time it's true, but maybe some of the time people do need drugs. I just don't see how all of a sudden in our society everybody's on drugs.
Yeah, they really are, and even the ads are tailored to them. And I don't watch a lot of network television. We're talking with Dan Wass. He's the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy. Because I've kind of cut the cord. We just do streaming and stuff like that. But I've been on the road. This is my first week to not be on the road since January 14th. And so I've been staying in this hotel, the same hotel. I can tell you all 5 HBO channels. And but I've been watching some of these commercials and on cable, and it's all pharmaceuticals. It's amazing how it's just nothing but drug commercials.
Yeah, what's interesting is every time they come up with a new ailment, a new problem that people might have. Oh, my back hurts, my neck is tight, my shoelaces are too tight. Whatever the issue is, they come up with a name for that condition, or that and then they'll give you the abbreviation. Oh, that's AHS or whatever. Oh yeah, do you have AH? Do you have this, or do you have that? And people go, well, yeah, geez, maybe I do. Yeah, maybe my neck does feel a little bit strange. What could that be? Well, here's a drug for it.
Wow. Yeah. It is certainly very, very, very worrisome. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to take a side note here. I found out during my stay at the hotel while I'm watching cable commercials, and Joe, you might be interested. Well, you're not. You're not going to be interested in this at all. But apparently, this commercial starts with this guy looking at the camera saying, "I'm on the pill," and I'm like, "What?" And so apparently there is a pill now that makes you less likely to contract HIV, and I didn't know that was a thing. That was crazy, and it blew my mind. Maybe we'll come back to that, Joe. And that's something that you would not be interested in. I'm so sorry. But anyway, so Dan, again, behind the lies of the anti-gun radical, there's like you were saying, there's a long list of the reasons why we've got to this point. I didn't mean to get us, put on a tangent on the psychotic drugs, but again, kind of talk more about this mindset of what goes on in the mind of an anti-gun radical.
Well, the most powerful, emotions that we have, and I've, if you look at your own life, you can tell it's fear and hate. These are the most powerful emotions. They're natural.
Mm-hmm.
It's most often fight or flight. And we will do just about anything if we're under enough fear or if we're angry enough. So what the anti-Second Amendment radicals, what they've done is they've really, and they do it every day, they condition people to fear guns and because so by fearing guns, it keeps them away from the range. It keeps them away from learning. These are,
Yes.
and what happens when you learn about something that you're not familiar with or you're scared of? You start to be more comfortable with it because you get that information. You start to understand it. So. But if you keep people fearful of something, they'll stay away. They'll just want it to go away. So make them fearful of guns, the people who don't know any better, and create a hatred toward gun owners and the NRA or any pro-gun groups. Create a hatred toward gun owners and tell all those people who don't know any better that the gun owners are recklessly and intentionally putting everyone in danger. So now what you've got is you got this cocktail of fear and hate among these people, and these are natural emotions. But the problem is the beliefs and the thought process of people are getting skewed, and people are getting trained. It's a terrible thing when you start to look at it, and we look at these people and go, "What's wrong with you? Why are you so hateful? Why are you so scared of guns?" Because us gun owners, we can't understand it because it's pretty simple once you learn how to use a gun. You're not scared of it anymore. Yeah. But these people, the AR-15 will forget about it. They'll lose their minds over it, and they've never held one in their hand. So,
well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Okay, so as somebody who was a liberal in college, I quickly realized like a lot of these issues, you can have an honest liberal who really believes that this is the best thing to do, and then you have this other side, the extreme, that really is doing it for power, doing it for control. So there are people out there who legitimately believe, whether they're wrong, but they legitimately have good intentions. They believe because they bought the lies that we need to have these gun control laws, or we need to diminish the Second Amendment because it makes us safer. But then, and Dan, just feel free to tell me if I'm crazy, I think there are some people that would like us to be disarmed because we're easier to control if we are disarmed. And that's more of a calculated, more intentional deception, more evil, quite frankly. If you have a problem with, if you think America or Americans are too free and they're just not smart enough to make their own decisions, they need help, they need guidance, whether it's because of environmentalism or whatever, you got to disarm us in order to make us do what you want to do. I mean, that's pretty common sense to me. What do you think?
Well, yeah, you nailed it. Sounds like you read the book, because here's the thing, and here's what I talk about in Good Gun, Bad Guy. This is the first thing I talk about. On the anti-gun side of this conversation, it's not just, originally I thought it was just, well, some people like guns and some people don't. What's the big deal? Well, on the anti-gun side, there are two groups of people, and this is what we don't always recognize. I call one group the anti-gunners. These are the people that are just being manipulated. The people who are just, like I said, they're the ones we see in the bank, we see in the post office and whatever. These are the people that are in our lives. These are our friends, our family, but they may be anti-gun. They've been convinced that, like I said, guns are dangerous and gun owners are reckless, and they just want guns to go away because they're scared, they don't know any better. But with the people you're talking about, I call the anti-Second Amendment radicals. These are the people who have leverage over the narrative, and they're the ones who are pulling the strings and convincing people that guns are bad, and it's very deceitful, and it is because they don't want guns in our society. At least they don't want us to have guns. See, the bad guys aren't the opposition to the anti-gun left. It's us, conservatives, people who support traditional American values, Constitution, Bill of Rights. We're their opposition because with us in the way, they can't have their government-run utopia. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who want that because they don't want the responsibility of taking care of themselves. They want to be taken care of, and they want government to do it. It's a sense of lack of responsibility. And the anti-Second Amendment radicals or the people at the top understand this, and they know how to manipulate those people to vote for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. There are two different types of anti-gunners, and one is very, very deceitful.
Yeah, wow. The book is Good Gun, Bad Guy. I've got it right here, if you can see it on the screen, Dan, because you sent me a copy. And it's always great to have you on, Dan. Best of luck in your other radio interviews today. I know you got a full slate.
Well, thanks so much, Paul. It's always great to be on your show, and I'd love to do it again.
Absolutely. Let's book it. Dan Wass, everybody.